This is Travis Wayne Goodsell, and this is the introduction for the new video series that I will be working on. In April 1997, my first wife abandoned the marriage, took our kids away from me. She did not get permission from the law. She got permission from the church. She got permission from my family. She didn't get permission from me. The laws of the land does not consider that a crime. And I was extorted to pay the ransom money with no guarantee that I'd ever see my kids again, and I haven't. And on February 1st, 2019, the state of Utah got involved in taking away my second wife. And so the gloves are off. The church is going down. And this video series will present to you what a true LDS Mormon church president, prophet, seer, revelator, and the neglected translator would do. But as you know, none of them have. So the abuse is going to stop, Mormons. If you guys won't change your heart, change your ways, then you're going to be exposed. And no YouTube Mormon employee is going to stop it. No abusive comments from Mormons is going to stop it. No thumbs down is going to stop it. You guys have seen my videos. You know I can destroy the church because it's not of God. And you'll remember the Book of Mormon. Or actually, it's the Doctrine and Covenants. Sorry. Contend against no church, but the church of the devil. Church is going down. It's on. Have I got your attention now? In the last video, I brought up the Book of Mormon scripture about iniquitous kings and tied it to iniquitous presidents of the church who keep their friends in iniquity. This is what the church is doing. You guys know that abuse is rampant in the church. Domestic violence was on the rise in 2017. Domestic violence. Mormons. Where is this abuse coming from? In the last video I told you it's because of the teachings of the church and the way the members are implementing those teachings. And so what are the abuse that is going on, that is being taught by the leaders of the church, who are in control of the government of Utah, who are in control of businesses in Utah, who are in control of society in Utah? What are the abuses against women? So we have to go back in time. Joseph Smith was not. The polygamy accusations were wrong. This was done by Brigham Young so that he could get away with it. It was Brigham Young who stood at the Deseret Conference pulpit and declared polygamy to be practiced among the Mormons, and then blamed Joseph Smith, as he later put in section 132 of the Doctrine and Covenants, claiming that it was from Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith was not polygamist. He gave women the priesthood to give blessings. People don't get this either. You know, when a woman lays her hands on the ox that's taking her across the valley, she's not giving a prayer. She was blessing the ox. Where would she get that idea? Oh, right. The organization of the Relief Society in 1842, on the 17th of March, my birthday. So every birthday I get to celebrate with the organization of women in the church. This is where it began. Brigham Young. Brigham Young was the first abuser of women. And I'm sure if you know anything about Brigham Young, you know that one of his wives divorced him. Good for her. But Brigham Young had been a sexual predator throughout his life and used his membership in the church to go around abusing that. He didn't go 2 by 2. He went 1 by 1 into women's homes when their husband was away to work, and the kids report of Brigham Young going into mommy's bedroom and then an hour later coming out and just leaving. Then when he went on to England, he did the same thing, same reports. And so when he got back, he was later quoted as saying, "I received revelation on polygamy. It wasn't Joseph Smith, it was me." When he was out in England, he claimed he got revelation for polygamy. And so, yeah, even though the church now put in their gospel topic essays, yeah, okay, Joseph Smith did it. He had sex with a 14-year-old girl, but it's okay back then. Jesus did it. Or Joseph, father-in-law, Mary was 14. And you know, yes, anciently, lifespans were shorter, and the need to populate, to have help, to get money, to survive, required lots of kids. So when an old woman was old enough to breed, you know, she was married off. And then you have cases like Laban with his 2 daughters, Rachel and Leah, where the younger daughter is more attractive to men than the firstborn daughter. And so Laban wisely knew, I need to get this older daughter married. But Brigham Young was a sexual predator, the first abuser of women. And he established himself as king over the kingdom of Deseret. What did you think it was? It wasn't part of the United States. It wasn't Utah. It was called Deseret. Brigham Young took those who survived to the desert. Matthew 24. Listen to Jesus' warning about false Christs. And thus began the abuse of women who followed Brigham Young. And so what did he do? He established the temple text, changed it. And in the temple text, women in their first covenant were to covenant to man to obey the man. Obey. Wasn't until President Benson where he changed the wording in the temple to hearken, and he went on a presiding campaign. It's not really obey, it's preside. Well, yeah, you have to have somebody presiding in the family. That's true. And obey sort of has been given a bad name. It's been abused. And thus, women were abused in the church. And have been. I saw it in my own family. Even though my mom was an abusive, alt-right, white supremacist, she wouldn't put up with some of the things Dad ordered her to do. I still saw it in her. She was in conflict. She wanted to order my dad, but knew that the church wouldn't allow her. And so my dad would get his way a lot of the times. And that would be their arguments that they'd have up in their bedroom, away from us kids, but we still knew what was going on. It was the fight over dominion in the family. And now with the temple changes, women no longer have to obey their husband. There's no order in the family. The family proclamation is now null and void. And I've already done those videos, and people have already complained and tried to justify it and blah, blah, blah. But that's part of the abusive culture, systemic culture of abuse of the Mormon church in Utah. That's why you guys are attacking me. Stockholm Syndrome. You guys are being held hostage by the church. You are free to go, but that's how far they've gone into entrapping you. You've been let out of the cage finally with the death of Brigham Young, but you all think you're still trapped, and you have to comply and obey with the fear of God to smite you down if you go against the church and their leaders. That's abuse. And you guys claim you love the prophets, even though they're abusing you. You'll attack others who dare claim abuse of the prophets. And yet you go to BYU. Women were accused. It was changed in 2017, finally. Women at BYU who got raped were blamed for the rape, just like in the courts of law. That's why they don't take you to trial in Utah. That's why they sat on all of the rape kits in Utah. Because Utah believes, as the church has taught them, that it's the woman's fault for her getting raped. She didn't cover herself up in a full dress from ground to head covering, wearing the mask over her face, just like a woman in Islam. It's the out of sight, out of mind principle. And what Utah has done was created a sexual repression which causes men to get angry and abusive. Instead of teaching people about safe sex and about proper sexual behavior towards women, they'd rather not talk about it and just tell you, stay away, don't do it. We'll punish you if you do. That's the abstinence policy. That's the Utah Mormon way. And thus, the abuse, the domestic abuse that's on the rise in Utah. And the abuse of police officers in Utah. And so when I was at work with the church in their distribution center, I heard men complain, women don't belong in the workforce. They belong at home, barefoot and pregnant, taking care of babies. And they were even talking about older women who had their kids all grown up. They're saying that they too did not belong in the workforce. This is this systemic problem in Utah. And that came from Benson, who said that the women belonged at home, in the kitchen, barefoot, pregnant, taking care of the kids. That women can't get an education, they can't get a career, and so women are rebelling. And then they're finding out, oh, that's right, my eggs dry up when I turn a certain age, and the quality of men are gone at that age. It doesn't have to be this way, people. It's not an ultimatum. Either get married young and be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, or don't have a family at all. That doesn't have to be that way. Women can still educate themselves. Women can still be actively involved in the communities if we change society. Now, my law of consecration would do that, because a woman under that condition, under that societal economic system, is free to do whatever they want. You don't need to go to a school, to leave home, go to a class for several hours in the day, and then come back and do homework. You don't need to do it that way. That's the regurgitation education process. That's not education. You know, true education, if you want to learn how to cook, for example, you have to actually be in a kitchen with ingredients and recipes so that you actually have a hands-on learning experience. You don't need to sit in a classroom to learn how to be a cook. Now, obviously, not every woman wants to be a cook. That's okay. You can be whatever you want in the law of consecration. But understand that if you don't want a family life, you can't change at the last minute and say, oh no, I want a family life before it's too late. You have to accept the consequences for your actions. But under our current system, you don't have choices. You have ultimatums. And women in the church who have formed the ordained women are going to the extremes. And I don't like that. You don't replace abusive leaders with alternative abusive leaders. That's not the solution. And so I don't like the trend of wanting diversity in the church just for the sake of diversity. But to complain about abuse and wanting change, nothing wrong with that. But the church has already attacked ordained women organization leader, excommunicated. And yeah, she was shocked. She was standing up for women in the church, and the church attacked her to silence her, to silence the organization. And they wore slacks in protest of the church's abuse. And now guess what women get to wear on their missions? Slacks. The church is caving to ordain women, but they're not bringing back into fellowship the leader who they excommunicated. The church has no respect for women. They don't care about you women. You can make excuses all you want that, oh, Relief Society empowers you. The temple. Remember the temple. You're receiving your endowments to become queens and priestesses. The male version is a Melchizedek. But the church will not allow you to take that authority out of the temple. Once you're out of the temple, nope, gone. You have no leadership authority in the church. You have no priesthood authority in the church. Even in your homes, you have no priesthood authority. Only when you go to the temple. And it's only by those who administer the ordinances to you in the female rooms, at the female side of the veil. That's as far as your priesthood goes. Brigham Young took it away from you. And you've been abused all this time, to the point where women, even my second wife, said, I don't even want the priesthood. Yes, you do. Because my second wife had extreme faith. She could give blessings to people because of her extreme faith. But because of the church's teachings, she was dependent on a man to step in and do it for her. That's abuse from the church, women. You are not free. And the mere fact that we have to have an ordained women organization to stand up against the church's abuse, to have members of that organization be relieved that progress is starting to be made with the change in the temple? No. Sorry. You know, a corrupt tree does not produce good fruit. A corrupt tree produces corrupt fruit. If you think it's changing, no, it's not. It's got ulterior motives. And we've seen that with Trump. Trump had been secretly separating families at the border, locking them in concentration camps. Then it was exposed that he had been doing that. And people rose up. They went down to the border to protest, stopped the buses from leaving. There was a nationwide hunt for the children being separated, being placed in alternative housing. And so Trump pulled a fast one on the nation and claimed to sign an order where he was stopping separation of families from children. And then everybody went silent and ignored it and went on to Trump's other distractions. And now the problem is worse than ever. He had funneled money from other departments to pay for the tent cities. And kids are still separated. Parents are being forced to sign documents giving up their rights to their children. This is what the church is doing to you guys. You may think that, oh, he's changed the temple and he's allowing women to wear slacks on their missions. No. It's a trap. It's a distraction. Corrupt trees do not produce good fruit. They produce corrupt fruit. They have ulterior motives for doing this. They have no intention of giving full equal status to women, to giving priesthood back to women. And so, yes, the church leaders are abusing women. Even though BYU has finally changed to stop blaming victims of sexual assault and rape. Even though Utah is finally processing all the backlog of rape kits, they're really not doing much in regards to resolving the grievances of the victims, the women. Because, there's this change in the law called statute of limitations. Because apparently being raped is not a serious enough crime to dismiss statute of limitations laws. So, do you want other examples of abuse towards women? Because you women know it. Once you wake up and realize that you've been abused, all of a sudden everything will start to come clear, and you'll be shocked and horrified. Those who have already left the church and who are further victimized for leaving the church. You already know that you've been abused. You're not my target audience. My target audience are Mormons. It is my intention to destroy the church because it is not of God. They cannot claim to be following the orders of Jesus Christ and justify abusing women. Because you then blame Jesus for being a sexist, misogynist, is that the right word? Abuser of women. Jesus, abuser of women. The Mormon God. Like section 1 verse 16 says, when you walk in your own way, you create your own God. That's what the church has done since Brigham Young. They went their own way, and thus they created their own God. So Brigham Young's God, he's saying Adam is Heavenly Father. But who's this God of the current presidents of the church? Because it ain't Jesus. Get out, Mormons. Get out. The church needs to be destroyed. Don't encourage them. Don't give them power. When you don't whistleblow, when you don't stand up against the abuse, you embolden them. When there is an abuser, they must immediately be shut down. They cannot be allowed to continue. I told you guys, gloves are off. I will not stand further abuse towards me either.